Okay, so now the next step that we're going to go through is cul-de-sac creation. We've already gone through, we started off doing the alignments and the profiles in that first video. Then in the next video we jumped into creating assemblies, creating the corridor, and creating automatic intersections. And then that last video that we had, the one before this, was creating intersections manually. So now we're on to the step where we can now add in cul-de-sacs. So that's what we're going to work on right now. So first thing, in my drawing I have 4 cul-de-sacs. I have one coming off the north here, one coming off the west, one off the south, and one off the east. So I'm going to create a cul-de-sac on each one of those. So I'm just going to start with this north one, and then I'll work my way around. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make an offset of this alignment on both sides, just the width of that lane to where we meet the curb and gutter. So I'm going to do O for offset, and it's 12-foot lanes that we have, and then we hit the curb and gutter, so 12 feet. And then I'm going to offset this line out. So now I have my 12-foot lane and should match up perfectly with that corridor there. Next thing I need to do is I need to create the cul-de-sac, the outer boundary of the cul-de-sac. So we're going to say that from curb face to curb face, the diameter or minimum radius has to be 40 feet. So we're actually having 80 feet diameter from curb face to curb face. This allows room for school buses to turn around and fire trucks to turn around and things like that. You can go larger than that, but no smaller than 40 feet radius. Now the key is it's 40 feet from the center to the curb face. We're going to be using the assembly curb return, okay, to create the cul-de-sac. So our alignment is going to follow this red marker here. Okay, so we're 2 feet shy of that curb face. So it's actually going to be 38 feet. It will be our minimum radius for our alignment, okay, because it's going to bump out 2 feet beyond that for our curb. So 38 feet minimum radius. So then what I'm going to do is basically off the center point here, I'm just going to do a circle. Okay, so this alignment goes right to the center of my right of way. I'm going to snap to that end point, and I'm going to go out 38 feet. Okay, so that's going to be where my alignment is going to follow along. Now, your cul-de-sac's not going to come here to a sharp point and go out. There's got to be some transition in here. So again, using the circle command, okay, so we're going to use the tangent radius option, and you can either click it down here or type T and enter. So if I type T and enter, now it's tangent radius. So I pick my first tangent along that line, second tangent along that line, and I'm going to do a 30-foot radius for my transitions. Okay, again, do the same command for circle. Again, tangent radius off of this line, 30 feet. So we have our transitions in there. Okay, now we got Mickey Mouse sitting in here in our cul-de-sac. Now we need to trim it out and get things to look the way we want it so we can create our alignment. So I'm going to do TR for trim. Okay, and then I'm going to trim out these outer edges of these transitions just to get them out of there. So I'm going to select both of these lanes and the circle around the center as my cutting edge. I'm going to right click to accept those, and then I'm going to click that outer piece and that outer piece, and now we're just ended up with these two these two little transitions. Now I need to trim this little piece out between those transitions. So again, TR for trim. Pick these two little arcs as my cutting edges. Right click to accept those, and then I'm going to trim out that piece in between them. Now that we have that, there's no need for us to have these two lines here, these two 12-foot offsets. So I'm going to actually erase those out. So this is what our alignment is going to look like around our cul-de-sac. So what I want to do now is I want to create an alignment from this cul-de-sac edge, basically. So what I'm going to do is going to click on the first one, right click, and go to convert to polyline. Okay, so that's converted that to a polyline. Then I right click on it again, right click, and do polyline edit and join, and I'm going to join those other two pieces. So now if I click on this, it's one solid polyline. So I'm going to create that alignment out of that. So now up here at on my create design panel under the home tab, for where we have alignment, I'm going to hit that drop down. I'm going to choose create alignment from objects, and I'm going to pick that outer edge that we just created for our cul-de-sac. And after I pick that, I right click to accept that selection. Now I believe you can also, instead of having to create it as one polyline, you could actually pick each arc and it would work too. I just like to just connect the polylines and do it that way, just my preference. But so now it's asking us the direction. Do we want to accept the direction that it's going, or do we want to reverse it? So the key is again following traffic direction, because we're going to have our lane on the left hand side, because that's what our lane is for our curb return assembly. So if I'm coming in here and going around this direction, is that going to work? Well, if I come in here, yeah, my lane will be on the left hand side, right, according to the direction that I'm traveling. And also traffic would be coming in down along this portion of the street and into the cul-de-sac and then back out. So it is following the traffic direction, so I'm going to accept that. Otherwise you could hit reverse if it wasn't going the right direction. Again, name it something unique so that it's easily distinguishable in our list. So this one I'm going to call North Cul-de-sac, because that's what it is. It's my north cul-de-sac. Okay, and the type, it's not a center line. Okay, center line would be the one going down the center line of the road. This would be an actual curb return, because that's what we're going to do. It's going to be at the curb returning out to the center line of the road. So curb return will be the type. Okay, again, no need to have any design criteria, and we can actually just keep all these parameters as is. Select OK, and now it's put that cul-de-sac in. You can see it starts with 0 and goes all the way to the end, so it's going the right direction. Okay, if for some reason that was going the wrong direction, you can always just select that alignment. Okay, and up under the Modify tab that comes up on the ribbon, you could reverse the direction. It's important to reverse the direction before you start building your profiles though. Okay, so now we have that alignment in. So now there's a few things that we would want to do to get the rest of it in. So now the thing is what we want to do is we're going to create a surface profile for this, but we're also going to need to do some analysis of what the elevations would be at this point. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is let's create a surface or profile for that. So go up to Profile, go to Create Surface Profile, choose the alignment. Again, if you don't know what you named it, you can always pick this little pick box and pick it from the drawing. But I remember that I called this one my North Cul-de-sac. I want my EG surface to be showing. Okay, so I'll hit the EG, hit Add, puts it down there. I go to Draw and Profile View. Okay, I go through and edit what I need to edit in this window. So I'm going to hit Next. Next, I need to adjust my profile view height, so I'm going to use User Specified. I'm going to go a bit before my minimum and a bit above, so I've been using 1030 and 1060, works pretty good. And again, make sure you have Split Profile View unchecked. Don't want that checked. Okay, and that's really all we need to put. hit create profile view, go over here somewhere and place it somewhere where you're going to be able to easily see where you got it. So I'm going to place that right over here. Now I can see my north cul-de-sac profile, and that's the existing ground, what it's doing at the existing ground. Okay, so now I need to create a finished ground profile for that, but we don't know, we need to make sure it's going to match up with what is coming in here, and make sure that the water is going to flow nicely enough in it. So one thing you can do is if you created a manual intersection at this, you're already going to have a dummy road in here, which works fine, because then you're going to actually have the elevation that you need in there. So if you do, you can just basically and we can actually skip. You can actually skip over to the next next little portion of this video, because I'm going to do this one first, where I have an automatic intersection, and then I'm going to do another one over here where I had my manual, which will have that dummy surface in here. So I'll show you that one next. First, I'm going to do this one. Okay, so the way I would do this one then is, first off, I want to add this section in here to my corridor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my corridor, okay, and I'm going to add a section in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my corridor properties, and then I'm going to collapse under the parameters tab. I'm going to collapse all these baselines. So now you can see the whole list of baselines that I have in here. Now what I want to do is I want to go through here and just double check to see if I've already got this north drive in here as a baseline. If I don't, then I can add it. Want to be careful not to just keep adding baselines and have duplicate baselines. It just gets really messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top, kind of go down. I do have a north drive right here. If I click on it, you can see it's a north drive. It's because that baseline was added when I had an automatic intersection created. So I'm going to just expand that, and now you can see the regions that are associated with that. Okay, so I have my half road and my full road. Okay, so those two have been associated with my north drive. So what I can actually do then is just go in here, right click. I want to add a region after, because if you look in here, it's starting at station 0 up at my intersection and going to the larger station down here. So I actually want to add the new region after this full road region here. So I'm going to right click on that bottom region and insert a region after, because it's going to insert after this. Okay, so then this one is going to be a full road assembly, and hit OK. Okay, so now this new one is going to go all the way to the end. Okay, so no need, well, we'll adjust the targets here. So where we have target, we'll hit the little ellipses. For target surface, we will change that target surface to EG, so it's going to target out on the daylight, and our link slope to surface out to the EG. And I'm going to hit OK to accept that. I'm going to change this the frequency for this one as well. So I'm going to click on those little ellipses where it says 25 for the frequency, and I'm actually going to change these to 5 for each one. Now the spirals won't matter, but change it anyways, because we don't have spirals in this. But now all these ones that said 25, I just changed to 5. So I'm going to hit OK to accept that. Then I hit OK to rebuild the corridor, and now we've put that section of road going into the cul-de-sac. We can use this now to analyze what the elevation is doing at that particular point on our corridor. So what I would do now is actually create our finished ground surface for this corridor. So I click on my corridor, and I go up to corridor properties. Okay. Under the corridor properties, I go over to the surfaces tab, I hit the little first button that's create a corridor surface. Okay, now it's going to have this main road as my corridor surface. If I wanted to rename it, like let's say I want to have this one called road FG. Okay, it's my road finish ground. I have to add this data to it. So links and top have to be there, and then you hit plus. Okay, so now that's the information, the data has been added to it. And normally you'd add a boundary. Right now we won't, because if you add a boundary it might end up getting screwed up. So we're just going to leave it as is, hit OK, rebuild the corridor. Okay, now because we don't have a boundary, we've got surfaces shooting across the middle and all that. Not a big deal, because it's still going to be accurate within our road section. So now I want to analyze and find out exactly what this elevation is at the start and end point of my cul-de-sac alignment. Another thing I want to just double check is I want to go over to this road that's coming in here. Since I created an automatic intersection here, it would have automatically adjusted this profile to match up with this road. So I want to make sure my slopes are working right for my north road, or north drive. So if I take a look at my north drive, okay, if I click on this, on my finished ground profile, you see it's got these little padlocks in here. That means that's associated with the lane of my main road, that loop drive that's going around, because this is the intersection. So there's no way I can adjust that. But what I've got going on now is I got a 1.57% going down and then a 1% coming back up. So really what I probably want to do is I probably want to adjust that a little bit because we're in a lot of cut situation here. So if I adjust this to a 1% down instead of 1.57, it's going to bring this point up slightly, which will allow me to then adjust this to back up to a 1%, which should bring this endpoint up a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click on this alignment, or this profile, go up to the geometry editor. Third button in from the right, you have your profile grid view. I'm going to click on that. And then you see that the points that were locked, they're grayed out. You can't adjust them because they're associated with that intersection. So for the grayed out from that one point, okay, so from this point out I have a minus 1.57. I'm going to change that to a minus 1%. So it kicks it up a little bit. But that adjusts the other one now to a 0.47, which is below minimum. So I'm going to change that to a positive 1%. Okay, so now we have that sloping back up at the 1%. So we're still in a cut situation, but it's gotten a little bit better. So I'm going to accept that for now. So I'm going to hit the close out of there, close out of the geometry editor. Okay, now that I've adjusted that, our corridor will be out of date. So I have to go over to my tool space and my prospector tab, expand the corridors. You see that the main road is out of date, so I'm going to right click on that and hit rebuild. It's going to go through and rebuild it. And now that surface would have adjusted. So now this is where I'm going to take my elevations for this cul-de-sac. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to analyze and figure out what the elevations are for these two points. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go up here to my Analyze tab on the ribbon, and then in the Analyze tab at the far right side you're going to see the Inquiry panel. And then there's this button here, the Inquiry tool. So I pick the Inquiry tool, and it's going to ask you to select the inquiry type. So you hit the drop down and it's going to be a surface type. You hit the little plus. There's two options. Let me expand this out so you can see. Okay, so you have surface elevation and grade at a point and surface elevation and grade between 2 points. We're going to do the grade at a point. So I pick that, and then it asks me to pick the surface. So I want to analyze what's happening with my finished ground road. So I'm going to choose that road, my main road surface, and then I'm going to hit OK. And now that it shows me here that my surface that I'm looking at is my finished ground. And right now, if I go to my screen, it's asking me to specify the point that I want to analyze. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the endpoint, so where I'm starting this 0 plus 0, 0 station. I click there, and it gives me information over here about elevation. So I can see that I have a 1044.385 elevation at that particular point where I'm meeting my cul-de-sac alignment. So what I want to do is on a piece of paper somewhere, I want to write down that elevation, so I have that that documented, so I know what to change that to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up like my notepad here on the computer. You can just write it on a sheet of paper. I'm just going to write it down so that people can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to make note that my north cul-de-sac, and I'm going to say 0 plus 0, 0 equals 1044.385. So I know that that's the elevation that I'm dealing with at 0 plus 0, 0. Go back to my drawing. Now what I can do is I can go to the end point of my cul-de-sac, so it comes all the way around and it meets the road again right here. So I'm going to click on that point, and you see 1044.385. So I'll go back to my notepad, okay, and I'm going to put, I can just write end equals 1044.385. And you notice something. It's the same exact number. The reason for that is because the beginning and end point are exactly across from each other. It's because we're coming straight in to our alignment. We have no curves coming into our alignment, no unique cul-de-sacs. It's just basically a very just plain cul-de-sac, basically. So it's going to be actually the same from start to end. But if yours is a little unique, you're going to want to make note of those two elevations. So I've got that information put down there. Now I need to do a little bit of calculation to find out what I need for my north part of my cul-de-sac, or analyze kind of what the water flow is going to be like in my cul-de-sac. So I'm not going to choose any other elevation yet. I'm just going to escape, and I can actually close out of this inquiry tool. There's no need to have that open anymore. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to know what my road is doing, where I'm going to have my water flow. So in this situation right now, from this point here at the center of my cul-de-sac, the water is flowing straight down into this midpoint here. Basically, the water is flowing out of the intersection to the midpoint there as well. Excuse me. So we need to see how we're going to make the water react in this cul-de-sac. So the thing is everything's flowing so far in this road down to this midpoint. So probably a good idea to make everything flow from this cul-de-sac down to the midpoint as well. Now, if it was flowing the opposite way, if we were having everything flowing down here, we want to figure out where we want to have our catch basin along the edge of this cul-de-sac so that it would the water would shed out to that particular low point. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure everything for this cul-de-sac flows out and down into basically into that catch basin, that low point down here. So one thing I like to do is kind of analyze what would happen if I came from this midpoint and then went down at a 2% slope to this farthest point of my cul-de-sac, just to kind of get an idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my profile for this north road, north drive. Take a look at what's happening at my end. So I have a 1045.160 at that end station, at that center of that cul-de-sac. So now I need to take a look and see what if I were to go down at a 2% out to the edge, what would be my elevation out there. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go in and open up my calculator. Okay, so with my calculator open, clear the screen there. I'm going to find out, it's going to go out 38 feet. So we're going over a distance of 38 feet, and we're going at a 2% slope. So if I just take 38 and then I multiply it by 0.02, which is 2%, I can see that I would drop 0.1 or 0.76 feet from that center point. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this elevation here, and then I'm going to subtract that from it. So if I take my 1045.160, okay, and I want to subtract this from it, so I'm going to flip those around, use this XY button to flip them around, and I hit subtract, and I could see that the elevation out here would be 1044.40. So I'm going to, in my little notepad, I'm going to write that elevation in here too. So I'm just going to write mid at 2% equals 1044.40. Now, whether I keep it at that elevation or not, it all has to do with what it looks like when I put that into my finish ground profile. But at least I have some information to work off of. So now what I'm going to do, close out of my calculator. I have no need for that open anymore. And then I'm going to go back and start creating my finish ground profile. So I go down here to where I put my surface profile for that north cul-de-sac, and I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to click and select this profile grid, go up here to profile creation tools, and I'm going to call this one whatever your alignment name is. So this is north cul-de-sac, and then I'm going to put FG because it's my finished ground. No need for design criteria or anything else. I'm going to hit OK. It opens up the profile layout tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by just doing the first button here, which is draw tangents without curves. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and snap to the beginning at station 00. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit F3 to turn my snaps off, and I'm going to place another one kind of somewhere in the middle. Then I'm going to put F3 again to turn my snaps on, and I'm going to snap to that end point. Okay, so now I have my start, my mid, my end. Now I need to update all the elevations for this to match what I've calculated. So I open up my this profile grid view. Okay, the third button in from the right, and now I can see what's going on with the elevations here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go take a look at my notepad and see what elevations I had. So I see that at 0 I should have 1044.385. So I'm going to change my elevation at 0 to 1044.385. And for mine's right across from each other, so they should be the same exact elevation. 1044.385. If you had a different elevation at the end point, you'd put that in here. Okay, so now if you look over here, you can see exactly what's happening. Okay, I want to make sure that this midpoint is pretty much in the middle. So if we start at 0 and go to 242, that's 242 feet. I half that, so it's 121 feet. So I'm going to change this to 121, or 1 plus 21. And then I'm going to put in that value that I calculated if I were to go 2% down from that point. So I'm going to take a look at my notepad, and it would be 1044.40. So I'm going to put 1044.40. And I'm going to accept that. Okay, so now if we go in and look, alright, so what this is showing is 0.01%, okay, down from this midpoint out to each beginning and end point along that curb and gutter. So basically, if we're looking at it in our view here, okay, so here's going to be our high point, and it's going to flow out at a 0.01% out this way and a 0.01% out this way. Not going to get much water flow at that shallow of a slope. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to up that, and let's see what ends up happening. So I'm going to change the, I'm going to bump, let's see what's the best way to do this. So if we're flowing out, okay, I'm going to bump this up a little bit. So for grade out for this, from the beginning point, I'm going to go at a, like, let's say 0.5%. So that kicks my center point up to 1044.99, which should, at a 0.5%, that should flow fairly decent out there. So now I'm at a 0.5% at both sides, so that should work pretty decent when we're dealing with our drainage. One thing that you also want to then notice is, okay, so at 1044.990, so from this point out here, that's that elevation. The elevation at the midpoint, alright, is 1045.16. So it's still going to be flowing slightly, like the water will flow slightly out this way and then back around. So really it comes up to design standard. If you want, if you basically just want everything just to kind of flow out that way, you could adjust some elevations. But for now, that's pretty decent. When we get into Waters design, we can kind of take a look at that and adjust accordingly if we need to, when we're analyzing surface flows and things like that. So as long as you're at about a 0.5%, should flow fairly good. So I'm going to accept that. So I'm going to close out of these. Okay, and now I've got my finished ground profile for my cul-de-sac. Now you'll notice I've got basically a sharp angle there. Really, it doesn't really matter because I'm going along the curb edge, and it's not like you're driving straight along that and hitting that level. So really I don't need to put a curve in there. But that should work fine, and everything should match up for this cul-de-sac. So next step to do is to add that into our corridor. So what I'm going to do is, first off, I'm going to select this corridor, and I'm going to grab this diamond little grip, and I'm going to drag that back basically to the farthest point, whether it's the beginning of the cul-de-sac or the end of the cul-de-sac, back. Okay, so since mine are right across from each other, I can just pick either one to snap to. If my start was up back here and my end was down here, I'd snap back to up my furthest point out. If it was the opposite way, I'd snap that to that furthest point out, because then we'll just fill in with a half road. But since mine go right across from each other, I just go right up to that point. So next thing to do is we need to add that this as a baseline and build a corridor off of it. So next thing I'm going to do is, with the corridor selected, I go up to corridor properties. Okay, under the parameters tab, I'm going to collapse all of my baselines. Now this one, there should be no baseline in there because I haven't done anything with that yet, and I just created it. So I'm going to go up here to add baseline, and I am going to choose that cul-de-sac as my alignment. So I'm going to go down here and find my North Drive cul-de-sac that I had created, and I pick that, and I'm going to hit OK. Now if you scroll down to the bottom, that's where it places it. It always stacks up to the bottom every time you add a new baseline. Okay, you'll see that it looks just like pretty much any of the other ones, except right here under the vertical baseline it has nothing, it just says click here. We need to assign our finished ground profile to that. So I click there, and it's asked me to select the profile, and I'm going to choose that North Cul-de-sac FG and hit OK. But we've just added this as a baseline. There's no region in here yet. So I right click on that baseline and we hit add region. The assembly that we're going to use is the curb return assembly for a cul-de-sac. So I'm going to hit OK to select that, or select it and then hit OK. Now you notice it adds this plus button over here. So we've hit that plus. We can see the region that's in there now. We just need to tweak it a little bit and add some frequencies and some targets. So first thing off, let's add a target to it. So under the target column, hit the little ellipses where we have target, and where it says target surface for our link slope to surface. This is our daylight. We're going to daylight out to the EG. Okay. And one other thing, well, I'm just going to leave it as this, and you'll see what happens if I don't change any of the other things. Under frequency here, I'm going to change that. Now, since we have no tangents on our cul-de-sac, it's all curves. There's no lines. We don't need to change the tangents, but we do have curves, and our curves for a cul-de-sac, it's all curves. We want it pretty tight, so I'm going to just change that to 2 feet. So every 2 feet we're going to do a sample, and we don't have any vertical curves, no spiral, so we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to just hit OK and rebuild the corridor so you can see what it looks like without adding the targets that I should have added. Okay, just like when we did a manual intersection, we need to, it's just putting in a 12-foot lane and it's not targeting anything, but we need to tell this to target this center line. So now we're going to just edit those targets. So one thing that you can do, well, I'll just show you in the corridor properties. So we're going to go up to corridor properties. Okay, again, collapse all just so it shortens that list. Go to the bottom, we see my cul-de-sac. I hit the plus there to expand that one. Okay, and I go over to my targets and I hit the ellipse. Okay, so this is what you would have wanted to do when you change that target surface. You want to hit the target width and the elevation. So first we just set the width, so I'm going to hit where it says none, and now it says you can target an alignment. You could also target a feature line or a polyline if you had one, but we do have an alignment. So if you don't know what it's named, you could just hit the little green pick box. I do know what mine's named, so I could pick it from here, but I'm going to pick it from the drawing just so you can see which one I'm actually going for. So I pick that little green pick box. So the one that I want to target is this, right? Because I want all these lines to come and shoot out and hit that point. So that's the alignment that I'm choosing. So I right click to click on it and then right click to accept it. Then I hit the add button and it puts it down here. And I'll accept that. The next thing is my slope and elevation targets. So I'm going to click where it says none, and I'm going to add the elevation for that. Again, you could pick the alignment from the drawing if you wanted, or if you knew the name, you could just hit the drop down. I know the name, it's my North Drive, so I'm going to go through, find my North Drive, and pick that. You're targeting your FG surface, not your EG surface. So you choose your FG surface, hit add, hit OK. Now you hit OK again, and OK again, rebuild, and now everything should target it out to that center point of that cul-de-sac. Okay. If for some reason you have lines that kind of shoot out and kind of go way out in the distance, the reason for that is because this alignment doesn't end right in the center of your cul-de-sac. The alignment has to end in the exact center, otherwise it won't be able to target out. So that is one way to put in your cul-de-sac. Now I'm going to go over and show you what you'd have to do to put it into an area where you already have a dummy surface. So right now I have my dummies turned off, so I'm going to turn them on just so you can see that I have that dummy. If you have questions on how to make a dummy surface, in the previous video in manual intersections is when I covered that. So you can see I have a dummy corridor in here with a surface associated with it. So really there's no need for me to drag this stuff over and or create a section in here and analyze the FG surface. I could just do it from the dummy surface. So I'm going to turn that dummy surface off again, just so it's not in there, because there's no need for me to have the dummy surface showing up. Okay, so we've got our alignment in for this cul-de-sac now. And keep in mind, this is if you have a dummy road going in here with a dummy surface. So next thing you'd want to do is you need to create that profile. You create this one a little bit differently, or you add a little bit different information. So I'm going to go up to Profile, Create Surface Profile, and I'm going to choose, this is my east cul-de-sac. So I'm going to choose that. This time I'm going to grab my EG and add it, but I'm also going to grab this dummy east drive, because it's the dummy surface for this road right here, and I'm going to add that in as well. Now I want that to show up a little bit differently in my drawing, so instead of having both of them being existing ground style, I'm going to change the style of the dummy one to something different so that it just shows up a little bit differently, hopefully. So I'm going to choose intersection basic, just something different. And then I'm going to hit draw on profile view, going through next. For elevation, for profile view heights, you do user specified. I do mine at 1030 to 1060, so above and below, or below our minimum, above our maximum. Don't have split profile view checked, so if it's checked, uncheck it. I'm going to hit create profile view, and I'm going to put that down here next to my other cul-de-sac. Okay, so now we have a little bit different information. So we've got this dashed green line here, and that's my existing ground, but I also have this solid green line, and what that is that's actually my my dummy surface for that road. So the advantage of doing that is before I had to go through and I had to actually do an inquiry to find out the elevation. This time I don't have to do that. All I have to do is just basically click on this this profile view that I just created. Go to Profile Creation Tools. Okay, I'm going to call this one the name of my alignment, which is East Cul-de-sac, with an FG at the end. I hit OK. Now it's to the Profile Layout Tools toolbar. Click on that first Draw Tangents Without Curves. This time I snap to that dummy surface. Okay, I'm going to turn my F3 to turn my snaps off. I'm going to place one in the middle, and then I'm going to turn my snaps back on, and I'm going to snap to the end of that dummy surface. So I have those 3 points. The nice thing about that is that's meaning that I'm already snapping to the existing surface that's out there. So it's all good. So the next thing I want to do is I want to just kind of tweak this a little bit. So I have the third button in as my profile grade view. And I know that my start and my end are okay. It's the middle one that I have to adjust. So right now I have 242 feet of profile or alignment. So halfway in between that would be 121. So I'm going to change my middle one to 121. And right now it's flat. I don't want it flat. I want to have a little bit of a slope to it. And again, just like with my last cul-de-sac, the low point is actually in the middle of that road coming into the cul-de-sac. So I'm actually flowing out of the cul-de-sac down the road to that midpoint. So I want to make sure that this stuff actually flows. So actually this midpoint is going to be my high point. And probably what's the best way to do that is actually to go, so for instance, from my start point out to this midpoint, I'm going to go out at a 0.5%. So I'm going to go up at 0.5 and then back down at 0.5. So that should be good enough slope to do, and we could actually change this if we wanted to, but it's good enough for now. So then I can just close out of this profile grid view, close out of the profile layout tools toolbar. Profile is good enough. So now all I have to do is add this information and build the corridor in here. So what I do now is select this corridor. Okay, I need to add the road coming up to the cul-de-sac, and then I need to add that cul-de-sac in. So what I'm going to do now is go up to corridor properties. Under the parameters tab, I'm going to collapse all the baselines, and then I have to go find if I've got a baseline already in there for my east drive, so for this main one coming in. So I'm going to scroll through and take a look. So far nothing. Okay, get down. So I have no baselines for this line in there already, so I need to add a baseline. And typically if it's a one that you created a manual intersection, it probably won't have that baseline. If it's something that you had created by automatically doing an intersection, it probably would have added that as a baseline already. So I'm going to choose this alignment. So either you pick it from the drawing by picking this little green pick box, or you pick it from your drop down list for your alignments. I know that that's my east drive, so I'm going to select that. I hit OK, and now if I scroll to the bottom, I can see that new baseline, which is my east drive baseline. Under the vertical baseline column, it says click here. I'm going to click there, and I'm going to assign the FG surface that I have for that for this section. I'm going to hit OK. Now I have a baseline, but I don't have any type of region to it. So I need to right click there and click add a region. Now this is going to be a full road assembly, so I'm going to go to the assembly drop downs, find full road, hit OK. Now it's added that, so if I hit the little plus button over on the side here, now it's added that into that baseline. Scroll over, I see my frequency and my targets. For right now I'm going to set my probably just keep my frequencies at 25 feet. But we can adjust that later. Targets, I need to adjust that so I can hit the little ellipses at the targets. I want to set these surface targets for my link slope to surface. That's my daylight on the edge. So I click here to set all, and I set them all to EG. Now it's all going to daylight out till those lines hit the existing ground. No need to do any width targets or anything, so I hit OK. One thing is, I don't want it to start at 0, and I don't want it to go all the way to the center of this cul-de-sac. So instead of starting at station at 0, I'm going to pick this little button that's next to it to allow me to pick it on the drawing. So now it's going to come back over here, and so here's station 0 plus 0, 0, and goes all the way to station 346 here. So I'm going to start it right where my these end. You're going to notice there's a little gap here because these don't quite match up, and that's okay. We'll fill it in afterwards. But I'm going to pick the furthest point out that's already here, so that point right there. Okay, so that's going to be my start station. I don't want it to go to the end, so I'm going to click that little button next to the end station. Okay, and again, I'm going to pick, basically you're picking the furthest one, or the closest one to the start with the cul-de-sac. So these ones are actually straight across from each other, so it doesn't matter. But if yours are staggered, you'd pick whichever one's closest to the start station that you have. So I've got that set up now. I can hit OK. I can rebuild my corridor. Okay, so now it's put that section in. Now it's important to come and look in here. I'm going to do this now just so that we don't forget about it and it's kind of fresh in our minds. These points didn't quite line up, so right now there's a little gap in here. So I need to add in a region into that point to fill that up. And keep in mind that I'm starting from this station and going straight through here. So I'm going to go up here with my corridor selected. I can go to add regions. So if I click that, it's going to ask me to select a baseline. So if you come and hover by this baseline for your east drive, it's selected that. If there's multiple baselines there, it'll ask you to choose from a list. So I've got that selected now. Now I need to choose the start station. So you'll see this little red marker here, that's my start. So I want to start at this point, and I want to end at that point. So I'm filling this little gap in. Now you have to choose the assembly. Now I'm traveling in this direction, so this would be on my right hand side. So I need to find a half road right, because the left side is already there, just the right side is not. I pick OK. Again, I need to set my target surface so it can daylight out. So I click there where it says none, hit EG, OK, and OK again, and now it's filled in that little gap. Now we have that closed off. So you can right click to exit out. So now we're good all the way through here, all the way up to here. We just need to add this bulb, this cul-de-sac in to the rest of it to fill it in. So now with this corridor still selected, I can go up to corridor properties. I'm going to collapse all these baselines so that I have them easily accessible to go through. And if you scroll through, you're going to notice that you don't have that cul-de-sac in there yet. So I'm going to hit add a baseline because I need to add that cul-de-sac alignment as a baseline. And the alignment will be the east cul-de-sac. So it's right there. If it's not there, you have to pick it from the drop down. So east cul-de-sac, I'm going to hit OK. So now if I'm at the bottom, I see that it's added it to my list. I don't have a vertical baseline assigned yet, so it says click here under that vertical baseline column. I click there, and I want to choose my cul-de-sac FG. That's what I want it to follow. I hit OK. Okay, now I've got that, but I don't have any region associated with it. So I right click on the baseline, click add a region, and this is going to be a curb return assembly. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I hit the little plus button that just showed up there to show me my region that's below it. Scroll over, I see frequencies and targets. First thing I'm going to set is my frequency. So instead of 25, we're going to get that down a little bit. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm actually going to just there's no tangents in it, so I don't need to worry about setting a tangent. There is a curve, all of it is a curve, so I'm going to set that to 2 feet. We have no spiral, we have no vertical curve, so those I can just leave at 25. So I hit OK. Now for target, I hit the little ellipses. I have to set the daylight out so that it will slope out to the existing ground. So the top one for target surface, I hit where it says none, hit EG, and OK, so it's now assigned the EG surface. Now just as if with before, right now it's just going to put in a 12-foot lane, and it's not going to actually fill in that whole cul-de-sac. When we do that by setting the width target and the elevation target. So right where it says width target, I'm going to pick where it says none, and then I'm going to pick the alignment that I want. You can pick from the list if you know what you're looking for, or you can pick from the drawing by picking the little green box. I'm going to pick from the drawing just so you can see which one I'm trying to target. So I pick that little green pick box, and I want this to target out to this center line. So that's the one I'm picking. So I select that, and then you hit add. So now it adds it into that, and you can see it's my east drive that is added. So I hit OK. Next thing is my elevation. Right now it's going to go, you're telling it basically to go to that east drive line at 2%. But we actually want it to match into whatever our center line elevation is. So we're going to hit here where it says none next to the elevation target. And again, we could pick from the drawing, but I already know it's my east drive that I'm looking for. So under the alignments here, I find my east drive. I pick my east drive finish ground, FG, hit add, hit OK. Then I can go again, OK and OK, rebuild the corridor, and now it's going to fill in that corridor region, and it's all good and works great. Okay, again, if you do this and you have like lines shooting out across it or big gaps in it, it's because your center line, the center line for your drive coming in, it's supposed to go right to the exact center line of this cul-de-sac. If it does not go to the center line, you're going to end up with pieces shooting out across. So now I've done 2 different kind of ways, one with a dummy surface and one with just using your regular surface that you have for your road to determine it. So that's where I'm going to end this video, and then I will continue on in the next video how to finish up roundabout.